Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to? Wait, that's not right. Well, I'm glad to have you on today's episode of Star Wars Nerds and Geeks. So, if I were to ask you, could the rebels truly have won the war? You might think it's a trap. No, it's not a trap. See, the rebels, they did have plot armor, and maybe without the plot armor, the Empire may have won. But I mean, of course, the rebels were gonna win. They had the plot armor. They are the good guys. They're gonna win no matter what. But there is good logical reason for why they won, and I'm probably gonna be talking about all these reasons in different videos. But for this video, I wanted to talk about one specific topic that really grinds my gears whenever it comes up. So, the galaxy is ginormous. It is really, really big. And I talked about this in a previous video, in the Battle of Kamino video. But the galaxy is ginormous. There are thousands of systems, and within each system, there are multiple planets that have beings on them. So, what am I getting at here? Well, there are a lot of systems that the Empire has to defend. Imagine every single system, and sometimes every single planet in those systems, has to have their own force defending it. That means they have to have garrisons of troops. They have to have commanders for those garrisons. They have to have generals for those commanders. Then they have to have a fleet. They have to have some sort of fleet. Then they have to have commanders for those fleets. And if they have a giant fleet, they will have to have a admiral for those fleets. And that is just for one system, even one planet alone. Multiply that by 1,000 and you've got a lot. Which is, when I was talking about my last video, I was saying that is the reason why you can't put a lot of forces into attacking one certain planet, because when you pull the resources to attack a planet, you lose defensive ground on other planets. This video, I'm going to be talking about a whole different view of that, and that is when you have a ginormous galaxy and you have to defend almost every single planet system in that galaxy, you are going to you might have a few good generals, like we have generals and admirals. I'm talking about specifically admirals right now, but we have Grand Admiral Thrawn, he was a good one. We had Grand Moff Tarkin, he was a good one. We had Piet, we had Nita, those were pretty solid admirals. But overall, you're not going to have the most incredible admirals. I mean, in the backwater planets, you're just going to put somebody from the Imperial Officers Academy. You just need somebody that knows how to give orders to defend this backwater planet that nobody cares about. So, what ended up happening was a lot of the Imperial officers are very terrible officers. They're poorly trained. The only thing that is good about them is they have a drive. They have the drive, but that's also a bad thing, because that means they have a giant ego most of the time, and that means that they will not sacrifice their pride or their ego, even if it means sacrificing the mission. But that is why that is a part of the reason why the Empire lost, is because they had so many planets to defend, and on all those planets they mostly had terrible officers who didn't know what they were doing, and so that just resulted in the rebels being able to take advantage of that and destroyed the Imperials. It's kind of sad. But in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about one specific example of this from the Rebels TV series. So this comes from the episode Ghosts of Geonosis. And in this episode, the Ghost crew is sent to Geonosis to try and figure out what happened to the Geonosian civilization, who were wiped out by the Empire because they knew about the Death Star. So there's only one Geonosian surviving, Click Clack. So half the Ghost crew is underground with Click Clack, trying to figure out what's happening. They're trying to understand him. The other half of the crew is on top of the surface. And so what happens is a ship enters hyperspace, and it's piloted it's commanded by a female officer who I don't know the name of, so I'm gonna call her Aurora. Now, Aurora is that stereotypical officer I was talking about. She is cocky, she is self-confident. Those mean the same thing, don't they? But she is egotistic, she is prideful, she is she is inexperienced. She's just a terrible officer in general. A very, very terrible officer. And so she enters the system and they detect that there are life forms on the planet. And she says, "Oh, it's probably just scavengers, don't worry about it." That's the first problem. She underestimates the rebels. She thinks that they can't know about Geonosis. You do not want to underestimate your enemy in war. That gives them an upper hand. You don't want to give them an upper hand. So she sends down a scouting party to see what they are, and the scouting party consists of 2 TIE bombers. The TIE bombers realize it's the Ghost, and they bombard the Ghost and then report back to the ship. Now Aurora realizes, I have the Ghost here. The Ghost in the early days of the rebellion is what the Millennium Falcon was at the near the end of the rebellion. The Ghost was a high priority target. You wanted to take in the Ghost. And so Aurora says, if we destroy the Ghost, that's a promotion for all of us. That shows her ego, her pride, and shows what she really cares about, the promotion. She doesn't care if she's screwing over the whole mission. She only wants that promotion. But by chasing that promotion, she's gonna ironically lose the promotion because she doesn't have the experience to take on the Ghost. What she should have done is contacted Grand Admiral Thrawn and told him about the Ghost. But anyways, so she goes down into the planet's surface to confront the Ghost, and the Ghost goes into a pit and sinks down to pick up the rest of the crew so that they can leave. This was a great opportunity for Aurora. The Ghost had trapped themselves. There was only one way out, and Aurora could block that escape. So this was a very incredible opportunity. And yet Aurora just completely ignores that. She does not use it to her advantage. What she does instead, and don't ask me why because I have absolutely no clue. It kills me whenever I see her do this. But she takes a squadron of rocket troopers, maybe 6-7 of them, and drops them into the pit after the Ghost. Again, why would she do this? The rocket troopers, first off, are almost outnumbered by the rebels. You never want to be outnumbered by the rebels. The one thing that the Empire has against the rebellion is numbers, and you don't want the rebels to and by giving the rebels numbers over the Empire is giving the rebels an advantage you don't want them to have. The numbers is the only advantage that the Empire has, and Aurora was giving it all away by sending in a small number of rocket troopers. Second, the rocket troopers didn't have any rocket launchers. The rocket launchers are the only things that could have really taken on the Ghost. They had thermal detonators, but that wouldn't have done anything to the Ghost. Rocket launchers are the only things that could have done something, and they did not have a rocket launcher. And so again, why would you send in a squadron of rocket troopers without a rocket launcher, so no effective way of destroying the Ghost, and you're sending them there against Jedi Knights who are going to defend the Ghost? And so the Jedi Knights plus a few other members of the crew are able to easily repel the rocket troopers without even a scratch. And so the Aurora realizes her mistake, and she rushes to bury the rebels alive, as she says. She starts pounding on the walls to collapse them. At the same time, she goes over the pit and covers it up. You might be thinking, hey, that's actually a pretty good idea. But actually, it's not. As Hera says, it's showing her inexperience. The bottom of ships in Star Wars are the weakest part of them. The bottom of a ship has generally less shielding and almost always has less weaponry. So the bottom of the ship, you never want to expose that to your enemy, and yet Aurora does that by covering up the pit with her ship. So the Ghost takes this as an opportunity. As the cave is falling down on top of them, they have to get out really quickly. So they fly up, they shoot torpedoes at the ship, and it blows up, and the Ghost is able to escape. The end. Now this really irks me because this was an amazing opportunity for the Empire to deal a crippling blow to the rebellion and get rid of the Ghost and its crew, which would have been amazing for them. So what would I have done if I were in charge of this ship instead of Aurora? First off, the second when I send in my scouting party, I would add an escort to them. Two TIE bombers is not very effective. TIE bombers do a lot of damage, but they can't really protect themselves. So you need TIE fighters to protect them. So I would send in TIE fighters to protect them. It's just common knowledge, and that would have helped take on the Ghost. And yes, the Ghost is piloted by Hera, so this small squadron probably would have been destroyed, but it would have dealt more damage. Anyways, I would have gotten the information from them that the Ghost was down there. First thing I would do is tell Thrawn that the Ghost is down there, because even if Thrawn isn't able to make it there in time, he has the information that the rebels were on Geonosis, and he would be able to do something with that. Then what I would do is I would go into the surface just like Aurora did, because rebels are really good at hitting and running, but they aren't good at prolonged confrontation. So you want to make it just that, a prolonged confrontation. So you go down to the surface, and then I would dispatch squadrons of TIE fighters, TIE bombers, any ships that I have. I would launch them all to attack the Ghost. And hopefully what I can do, the goal is to attack the Ghost and to ground it so that it can't leave, and possibly destroy it, but most likely I wouldn't be able to destroy it. So, if the Ghost is able to escape this, they would continue down the pit like they had in the show. And at this point, I would realize that they're putting themselves into a trap. So the Ghost is probably going down there for a reason, and whatever reason they're going down there, they're gonna be there for a little while. So then I would immediately start bombarding the sides of the pit to collapse it in on the Ghost. And so at this point, the Ghost is forced to leave without what it was taking, which is the crew of the Ghost, majority of the crew. And the Ghost would have to leave, which would be a very good thing because now the Ghost and part of its crew are separated. I wouldn't know that at the time. And then the Ghost would have left, it would probably have some damage on it, and I would be able to continue attacking it. And because it's leaving, I would be able to attack its engines much better. And I would focus fire on the engines to again try and ground it. But let's say I wasn't able to successfully do that. Let's say that the Ghost is able to pick up the crew and is about to leave. One thing that I would do is first I would send in TIE bombers to bomb the Ghost to weaken the shields, to hopefully to just completely get rid of the shields and to damage the Ghost as much as I can. And then I would cover up the hole, but I would flip over. In Star Wars, ships are able to flip over, or they're able to be upside down, per se, because the gravity is in the ship itself. Generally, when you're on a planet, you use the planet's gravity, not the ship's gravity, but you probably could turn on the ship's gravity. And so I would do that. I would turn it upside down, turn on the ship's gravity. It would be kind of a weird experience for the crew, but we would get used to it, and it would help us because now we have our strongest side facing the ghost. And as the ghost tries to come up, we would be able to bombard it with our shots. And the hope is that we have more firepower than the ghost, and so we are able to destroy the ghost. However, in the event that the ghost is able to escape, it would most likely have a lot of damage, so it wouldn't be able to get far, and Thrawn would be able to take out the ghost. So, the lesson here, if I was an Imperial officer, I would be a really good one. I'm just kidding. The lesson here is that Imperial officers generally place their own needs above the Empire's, just like Aurora decided that the promotion was worth the risk of losing the ghost. Most Imperial officers are very egotistical and will place their needs above the Empire's. So officers, and the Imperial are very, very bad. The officers in the Imperial Navy are not good officers at all, and if the officers were better, then the rebellion would not have been able to win at all, because small instances like this, where the Imperial officer would have been able to actually destroy the ghost had it been a competent officer, small instances like that would lead to the war being won for the Empire as opposed to the rebellion. That's my rant for today. And yeah, it was kind of a rant episode. I didn't really have a plan. I just wanted to talk straight through it, and that's what I did. I hope it turned out alright and you liked it. But, anyways, until next time, this is Star Wars Nerds and Geeks signing off. See you all next time.